Chicken Fillets here, and it's time for another JRPGs and Me episode. Now, you'll see on my right or left, wherever this goes, I have Eric Ladd with me today. So, just to give you an emphasis of how this episodes work, is I get on a guest and basically find out their lives around JRPGs, and that's why it's called JRPGs and Me. So, as I mentioned, I have Eric Ladd with me. Now, to give you a brief about Eric, Eric is a content creator on YouTube with his own JRPG retrospectives, reviews, and he also has his musical project, one-man video game covers band, I would like to say, Retro Game Remix. Now, how I met himself was actually through a Super Derek video many moons ago when they were talking about Final Fantasy VI, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Have I got all the descriptions right, Eric? And would you like to add anything onto that?
No, if I add anything onto that, I would sound like I have a huge ego. No, it's totally fine. The introduction is great. I'm very happy to be here. It's great to be chatting to you today about whatever you want to chat about, JRPGs and me, I guess.
Well, that's it. So I have a list of questions to kind of build that JRPG profile around you. So we'll get cracking with the knacking, and we'll start off with, could be an easy question, could be a hard question. Simply, what is your favorite JRPG?
That's a really great question, and my immediate gut reaction is Final Fantasy VII. And the reason why is it's the first one I played as a kid, and it's still the one that I have been revisiting in my mind over the last 25 years or so now. Actually, more than that. Is it more than that? Slightly more than that. And of course, with all the hype of the rebirth and remake and all that stuff, like, it's just constantly on my mind.
Well, I was actually suspecting it was going to be another JRPG at first, before you answered it. I was thinking it was going to be maybe Earthbound, but Final Fantasy VII has once again prevailed on this channel.
As it should. As it should. I'd probably say Final Fantasy VII would be like my childhood answer, but my big boy answer would probably be Xenogears.
Oh, well, you can maybe plug a certain retrospective which came out recently.
Something like that, yeah.
You see, this is the annoying thing with being in the EU side of things, is that because you've got that maybe when you were stateside, before you moved down under.
Yes.
We didn't get Xenoblade in this region, which is really annoying. So, like, when people talk about, how great Xenogears is, I've not really had the chance. I do have another means of playing it, but I need to fully get into it.
Well, it could be a trade-off, though, because you guys got Terranigma and we didn't. So, eye for an eye.
That's another one I've not played. Talking about favourite JRPGs, let's move on to the favourite JRPG series. See, I find that quite an interesting one, because although that your favourite could be, Final Fantasy VII, it could be a different sort of series that you like better, So
it's hard to say. I mean, like, the most prevalent one would be Final Fantasy series. Is that my favorite? It's hard to say, because there's so many JRPGs that are one-offs that I really like. Like, I wouldn't say one-offs. I mean, Earthbound is part of a trilogy, but nobody really has played Mother 3 or even Earthbound Beginnings, or Mother 1 as they want to call it. Xenoblade Chronicles is really great, and I would say that's probably a more modern answer, where I would say, yep, that's where they really nailed that style, that they really got that formula right, and that's something they've been developing since Xenogears. I don't want to do a cop-out answer and say Final Fantasy, but I have a deeper appreciation for the Final Fantasy series after playing 16, which is the new modern take on Final Fantasy, then going back and then playing the pixel remasters, because I hadn't done that prior, and having that reference for the most recent game, and then having the reference for all the games that came before it, because I've played most like 7 and above. But 1 through 6, I hadn't really dabbled in a whole lot. So, after having played and beat those games on the Pixel Remaster series, I'd probably say Final Fantasy would be my... It's like my generic white girl, like, pumpkin spice latte answer. But you know what? It works, though.
Yeah. Well, see, the thing is, I mean, Final Fantasy, I started off with 7 and then worked my way through it. And once I got back into JRPGs, that's when I started looking backwards to everything. So that's when I started getting the likes of 6. I played that first, and then when I used to use my PS Vita all the time, then I got the first Final Fantasy, second, third, blah 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 blah. So that's how I experience them. I've not experienced the pixel remasters, which you've said's awesome. So yeah, and because of those pixel remasters, you actually like Final Fantasy 6 now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I okay. It's a game that I never understood the hype for, and the you mentioned that you found me through Super Derek, and I was chatting with him on YouTube. I was like, I don't understand the hype with Final Fantasy VI, and it really, I think, was a matter of you had to have been there at the time to appreciate it the most, because the first time player of Final Fantasy VII can't go play that game and experience it in 1997 and realize, like, oh my god, this is something huge and monolithic. So I think, again, having the perspective and the reference for everything that came before Final Fantasy VI, it's like, oh, okay, I finally get it now. So I have a much deeper appreciation for it, and I'd probably say it falls down in my top 3 Final Fantasy games.
Well, that's fair. Well, we've been talking about favourites, but what's the least favourite JRPG that you've actually played?
That's a really great question. And I don't, like, I mean this lovingly. It's like, pick the kid that you don't like the most. I still love the kids, but I have to say, this one right here, Quest 64. I'm playing it. I'm playing through it, but I'm kind of struggling with it, man. It's like, I don't hate it by any means. I appreciate it. It has a very great level of charm to it, but man, it could have been a really great game had it been more polished.
You see, you've been playing it on the YouTube live, streaming it, and the battle music, every time I've seen it, I've just commented going, that battle music, I can hear it in my head just now, just like, yeah, it's just like, oh.
It's awful.
Oh. Okay, well, we've got a definitive answer for that, but the definitive question for most JRPG fans is the combat, right? So, turn-based or action-based combat?
Turn-based for me,
What's
definitely. It's
turn-based.
And I think it's a generational thing, really, because I like action-based combat. Again, it's that whole thing of, I played Final Fantasy 16 like you, I loved it like you, but I really enjoyed the game, and this isn't me trashing the game at all, but it's like I came away from that experience like, I'm feeling like a turn-based itch, and I need to scratch that. That's why I went back to the Pixel Remaster series. I just find that the turn-based combat is more engaging, and it makes me think more, whereas, yes, sometimes with like the Final Fantasy 16s or whatever action-based combat, yes, it can be a little button mashy, and it doesn't challenge you as much, especially depending on if you have like a battle system like Grandia or something like that, where you get the little bar, or you have, other things. It just makes you use your noodle a little bit more. That's why I kind of prefer that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's turned into more the action-based combat I like nowadays, and that's just down to the time that I've got to play games now. The modern turn-based JRPGs are good for the fact when they include ways to speed up combat. So the Trails series has a really good system for speeding up battles. So there is those modern JRPGs which are good for that. But I feel personally like I'm getting more into the action base. I think because of mainly like Nier Automata was a big one that I played this year in full, and that combat really drew me in. Harvestella, I'm just on the cusp of completing now. I'm on the epilogue of it, and it's like got a decent action combat system. It's not fully fleshed out, but it's still really enjoyable as well. So yeah, so perfect. Now this is in the name of this next question. This is in the name of your music pod project Retro Game Remix, but I'll ask it anyway. Preferred JRPG style, retro or modern?
Retro for sure. And I think there is a the whole the early 90s golden era JRPGs. Like, that's a thing for a reason, and that's the blueprint, the gold standard, like that exists. And it's not that I don't like modern JRPGs. And to be honest with you, there's a whole lot of modern JRPGs that I haven't even touched yet that people would say are the greatest of all time, like Persona 5. Like, I haven't really played that yet. It's just, it's the whole tomato thing, right? Like I love the retro stuff, and I think that's where my heart lies, because I love retro gaming, I love retro collecting, I love all that stuff, and then of course the finer niche within that is retro JRPGs, which is what I really like. But there are some really fantastic modern JRPGs like the Xenoblade series. Like I know you love Xenoblade Chronicles 1, 2, and 3. Like Chronicles 3 is an absolute masterclass. But I mean, aside from that, like there's the whole Trails series and you know, the Tales of series. Like a lot of those games I haven't played. So I suppose it might be an uneducated answer because I haven't played the wider breadth of games out there. But man, the retro stuff is just really where my heart is. And like, again, all of these newer games base themselves off of what came before, which is the gold standard, early 90s, mid 90s. Absolutely. Good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, if I have to pick for me, it would probably be going down more the modern route. Because when I got back into JRPGs, that was because of Crisis Core. Back then, that was more of a modern take. And then with, you know, I'm mainly a handheld gamer, so like sort of the PS Vita, I was getting my PS Vita JRPGs, like I'm looking at the shelf, the Trails of Cold Steel, Tokyo Xanadu, amongst others. And then like sort of the Switch came along and PS4, and you've got, you know, I'm again looking at my shelf, Persona 5 Royal, Persona 4 Golden, etc. Now I know Persona 4 was realistically a PS2 game. With the kind of the SNES sort of JRPGs, I didn't, you know, I started off with PS1, so it's going back to like sort of the pixel style JRPGs. I find a lot harder than your modern ones. I mean, there's nothing wrong with them, like you said. It's just if you have to make me, you know, you put a gun to my head and ask me what one you would prefer, I would have to go for the modern ones, especially with, you know, the game that I always speak about in here, Final Fantasy VII Remake, or Rebirth when it comes. Yay.
Yes.
So, yeah, it depends, because the thing is as well, the retro games will always be there to go back to, and it shows the influences. Yeah, I'm waffling on now.
It's a hard one. It's a hard one too, because like, you know, I love the Super Nintendo era stuff, but the PlayStation 1 was really where some JRPGs got really well refined. You know, that's where the Final Fantasy 7, 8, a lot of people are debatable on 8, and then you had 9, then you had Grandia, then you had Xenogears, and you had like Wild Arms as well. Like, so that's the point where stuff really got really good. So, I mean, yes, you could look at the Super Nintendo era, but I think that mid-90s point where it just kind of teetered on the edge of the end of the life cycle for SNES, and then PS1, like that's really where things got good.
Yeah, that's fair enough. The next question is music related. I thought I'd introduce this one as well because you are a musician, as I said before. So what is your favorite JRPG soundtrack?
That's a really great question, and I think it's so easy for me to default to Final Fantasy VII, is because, again, like that's the one that I grew up with, that's the one that I have the most nostalgia for. So I'd probably say, I probably want to say Chrono Trigger. Actually, I love Final Fantasy VII. I think that's great, but stylistically, I love what Yasunori Mitsuda did in Chrono Trigger. I love all the different themes in there. And even like to kind of piggyback off of that, to kind of give you my option 1.5 would be Chrono Cross. I mean, in my opinion, like the soundtrack supersedes the game, just because like his production style and writing style really kind of speaks to me, because it's kind of folky, kind of rocky in some spots, whereas like Uematsu's stuff can tend to be more prog, and I love prog, but I just find that sometimes like Mitsuda's stuff is a little bit more easy to listen to. And I just love his different themes and stuff that he uses as well. So like, I found out the other day like that Yasunori Mitsuda did the Xenogears soundtrack, I think in the same year as he did Mario Party 3. And like that's
I didn't know that.
Like that's very strange. I mean, because I could be wrong with the years, but you get the idea. So like his styles are all over the place. But I don't know. I think I'd say Chrono Trigger. It's a good one.
Okay. Cool. And my final question for today is, what is your most well, I'm getting the question wrong now. Right. Next year's got some fantastic JRPGs coming up. Grand Blue Fantasy, Persona 3 Remake, blah, blah, blah. what is your most? What's the upcoming JRPG that you want the most?
Well, I mean, I think you already know the answer. I mean, we've talked about it for many months now, and it's of course Rebirth, and it's not just because like I'm on the Final Fantasy VII hype train, like which I am, but I'm really interested to see where they're going to be treading new ground with the series and the story, and bringing recurring characters back. It comes into that whole thing of, yes, you know, they're possibly milking nostalgia here, but it's working, and they're gonna get my money. But
Definitely.
I mean, aside from Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, like there's other games that I haven't even discovered yet that I'm interested to find out. Like I'm always researching stuff, and yes, because I kind of sit in the more nostalgic era of JRPGs at the moment, and I really have, because that's what I grew up with. So I don't really know a lot of other things that are out there. So I'm always trying to look for that next best thing. I mean, Final Fantasy VII is always going to be the mainstay of my life, as well as yours, I'm sure, but. You know, I'm interested to get into the Trails series or the whatever series, or I don't know. I don't know what's out there, but I'm interested to see what 2024 has in store for us.
Well, you already know what my answer's going to be.
Oh, yeah. We know.
So, there we have it. That is Eric Ladd's JRPG profile. So that is another episode of JRPGs and Me. So, what I'll give you a chance to do, Eric, is if you want to plug anything for yourself, your socials, or anything upcoming, do it now.
Well, I've been doing a lot of retrospectives lately. Again, of the retro stuff. I have a video that I'm finishing right now, which is a retrospective on Grandia, which is an older JRPG that I only found out about a couple years ago, and I really loved it. It's got a combination of like kind of Saturday morning cartoon, like kids anime with some more kind of serious undertones. It's a great game, and then of course you had Grandia 2 and 3, and then Grandia Extreme, which I haven't really got into yet. But it's accessible. It has the HD remaster. So I've been revisiting a lot of those games that I love there, and you can find those on my YouTube channel. And just trying to stay consistent, you know, finding the niche with YouTube stuff, which is the JRPG stuff. I feel like I looked myself in the mirror one day and I was like, oh, I should just do JRPGs because that's all I play. so there you have it.
That's why I focused on as well.
Yeah, that's all I do.
Perfect. Well, thank you to Eric Ladd for coming on today for another episode of JRPGs and Me. So, until next time, tatty bye.